would not be represented, who would they? The LDP presidential election, which happened to also be the election to decide the next Prime Minister of Japan, was held on 30 September. For the first time in 30 years, a female candidate announced her candidacy. Her name is Ms. Sanae Takaichi. However, when she announced her candidacy for the LDP presidency, an interesting newspaper article appeared alleging that she is unpopular among her female colleagues because she does not participate in any of the female-only diet member meetings or groups. Therefore, a politician who does not focus on policies specific to women is not suitable to be the first female prime minister. Does anyone else think this is strange? How is it that Ms. Takaichi, who is a woman herself, is incapable of understanding a women's perspective? This idea in itself is confined by this concept of categorization.
小野田紀美、他では聞けない伝説の英語インタビューです。和訳字幕をつけますが、英語字幕が見たい方は、画面右下から字幕設定をしてください。
CJEB, we've launched the Japanese Management Leadership Program in 2020 to support Japanese executives and emerging leaders with the latest research methodologies to hone their leadership skills. Today's webinar is part of this program's Women Career Advancement, in which we promote and encourage equal treatment and career development opportunities for all genders. So I'm very honored to introduce today's speaker, Kimi Onoda, a member of the House of Councillors of the National Diet of Japan, representing Okayama Prefecture. Ms. Onoda is a member of the Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP. She is a member of the Committee on Education, Culture, as well as the Committee on Rules and Administration, and the Special Committee on Regional Issues and Consumer Affairs of the House of Councillors. She is also director of both the Youth Division and the Women's Affairs Division of the LDP. And uniquely for a Japanese politician, Ms. Onoda is of mixed race descent. She was born in the US state of Illinois to a Japanese mother and an American father, and was raised in Okayama, Japan. We at CJEB are truly excited to have Ms. Onoda join us today, and we look forward to hearing more about her personal history, including the challenges and opportunities that may come with being a woman, young, and mixed race as a politician in Japan. So without any further ado, I want to invite Ms. Onoda to begin her talk. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the kind invitation to participate in this event. It is both my pleasure and honor to join you all here today on this occasion. First, I wish to thank Director Weinstein for organizing this event. As introduced, I am a member of House of Councillors for the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, and I served as a Parliamentary Vice Minister of Justice until last month. I started my career working for a video game company, and then I decided to run for political office in my local assembly. As such, this year marks the 10th anniversary of my entry into political life. Professor Weinstein mentioned that the school is very active in area of DEI, and I'm interested in hearing some unique stories for me. So today I will speak about diversity and integrity. Let me start by sharing some experiences from my childhood, and I would like to present my views on the stereotypes that we tend to impose on others in our attempt to promote diversity. I'm half Japanese, born between a Japanese mother and an Irish American father. Now, for those of you uncomfortable with the simplified term of half, please bear with me as I will explain my thoughts later down the line. I was born in USA after my parents' international marriage. When I was 1 year old, my parents and I returned to Japan to live with my grandfather. One day, when I was 2, I woke up in the morning and found that my father had suddenly gone away. Since then, I was raised by my mother in a single-parent household. At the time of my father's disappearance, my mother was pregnant with my young sister. Life was hard. We were hand-me-downs from relatives and lived simple lives without even dreaming of eating out or going on vacations. Still, my mother insisted that her daughters receive a proper education, even if that meant going into debt. Thanks to her determination, we went to good school, and I am now a member of that diet. I grew up in the countryside of Japan where there were no foreigners or half Japanese residents. No sooner had I entered nursery school and starting to have social interaction with those outside of my family that I became a target of persecution. All the kids at my school chased me, threw rocks at me, and beat me up while yelling, "Dirty foreigner, go back to America." At first, I did not understand the reason for my mistreatment. I thought that maybe I had done something to offend other people, so I just accepted it. However, once I understood that my abuse was fueled by racial difference, I decided to maximize my resistance, arguing that I had not done anything wrong. They are the ones who were wrong. Fortunately, I was taller and stronger than the other kids, and I was determined to fight back whenever I was bullied, and it worked. The number of kids bullying me gradually decreased, but these attacks continued until I graduated from my small public elementary school in the countryside. In the close environment of a small community of group, it is often perceived that being different from others is bad. Of course, this is not just limited to those who are half Japanese. For example, if you do better than others in school or disagree with controversial rules that are tastefully accepted by all, you will be unpopular. I think that any environment that blindly condemns differences from the majority, differences from the majority as bad, regardless whether that difference is better or worse, is wrong. It is wrong because it generates an environment where the promise of evolution and growth is precluded. My mother could not bear to watch me battle peer pressure every day in such a narrow-minded environment and suggested that I apply to private junior high school. As a poor single parent, it must have been a difficult decision. Following my mother's advice, I entered an all-girls missionary school, which had both a middle and a high school. Having been bullied mostly by men and boys, I entered this school in the hopes of an environment where I would not have to fight. A few days after starting school, I was suddenly surrounded by several older students in the hallway. I thought to myself, is this going to be the start of everyday battles again? But then they said, "Hey, will you be a friend?" I was so surprised. As it turned out, they noticed a half Japanese girl at the opening ceremony and simply wanted to become friends with me since I was unique. I was fortunate to enroll into a junior high school where many of the senior students, classmates, and teachers were open-minded and viewed being different as unique and that individuality should be treasured. This concept was very new, even nearly a utopian environment for me, as I had always been rejected for my differences. This environment where I was not inevitably rejected for the traits that I was born with, or even my thinking or lifestyle assigned it my development as an individual, and enabled me to grow as a person. I learned interesting perspective and ways of thinking through exchanging views with other unique individuals. My energy spent on fighting these challenges shifted to clarifying and fulfilling my dreams. I would not be who I am today had I not gone to that school. Another reason why I am glad that I attended that school is that it was an all-girls school. Generally speaking, we often say in junior high school the differences between boys and girls become more apparent than in elementary school. For example, in the past, the subjects studied at school were separated, such as shop class and home economics, where boys were given technical training using tools, while girls were taught to cook, etc. The curriculum of physical education class was also different. Even when working together, the role tended to be divided by gender. Boys would do the physical work, while girls would be charged with the more detailed activities, rather than consider what a student wants to do as an individual or what a student is good at. However, this is not the case at girls' schools, as there are only female students. For example, at the cultural festival, those who are good at hard work are assigned to do physical work. Those who like cooking are assigned to making sweets, and so on. Tasks were assigned based on a student's individual abilities and interests. The environment was very flat and fair, where people were viewed as individuals rather than being categorized. The discomfort I felt when I went out into society was the same old stereotypes, such as this is how a man should be, or this is how a woman should be, was extraordinary. I wondered if I had been transported back in time by a couple hundred years. Then I recalled that when there are events held out in the Japanese countryside, it would often be the case that the women were working all the time. Whether it be preparing or serving food, the men would just gather around eating and drinking. As a student, I thought, I definitely do not want to be forced into this stereotypical categorization, and I sure do not want to live here. This notion that being different is bad or having set archetypes for women and men. This way of thinking is everywhere, but I think that learns to be stronger in the countryside. To me, though, it is no more than form of pain imposed upon me. After graduating from high school, I left the countryside and went to a university in Tokyo. Nowadays in Japan, young women are concentrating in Tokyo, escaping from the countryside. Some Diet members who advocate for the revitalization of Japanese regional economies blame this on the fact that women like trendy and glamorous things, so they go to the cities out of admiration, which is disgraceful. However, according to the survey on why young people move to Tokyo, which was released by Prime Minister's office, an interesting trend was found. When asked why they moved to Tokyo, about 32% of males while only 24 of females answered because they admire city life. Meanwhile, women tended to answer that they had moved because they wanted to get away from their hometown and parents. This was the case for about 27% of women, which is a greater figure than those women who answered that they have an admiration for life in the city. We should look deeper into the responses of the women who answered that they wish to leave their hometowns and carefully examine to reason as to why. In today's society, we can no longer bind people by imposing one's narrow opinion of the world. For instance, we now live in a connected world and we can access any variety of social values from around the world through our smartphones. However, it is important to note that while some young women do not like the values of rural Japan, others are comfortable with this traditional way of thinking. If the individual prefers these even after knowing of all the other types of value and possibilities out there, she should not be condemned for believing that traditional values are best for her. Fundamentally, it is important to respect the values of each individual. I would like to reiterate the importance of this fact. Even though there may be a trend in the way women tend to think, we are still all individuals. A trend does not tell the whole story, and it should not be treated as consensus. A few minutes ago, I mentioned my time at an all-girls school. I said that attending an all-girls school taught me importance of looking at the individual rather than just the gender categorization. The template asserting that all women are XYZ or that all women think a certain way is meaningless. Because even though we are all women, we all have different ways of thinking of and living. With this in mind, I would like you to think about how we can realize diversity. This is something that I have felt very strongly about since childhood. It is very important to live in an environment that recognizes diversity. I believe that the imposition of blanket categorizations, political system, religions, etc., will not lead to development of society. Therefore, there is nothing wrong with the recent trend that calls for diversity. However, diversity does have its pitfalls. While shouting diversity, people tend to solve issues by categorizing individuals. Take the Japanese diet. For example, Japan is often criticized for having too few female diet members. But is this a superficial number? Is this the only important factor for achieving gender equality? In the first place, a diet member's job is to represent the constituents of all demographics, regardless of whether they are male or female. Otherwise, the opinions of children who, of course, cannot run for office or vote would not be represented, who would they? So I think that is nonsensical to divide the diet by gender. The LDP presidential election, which happened to also be the election to decide the next Prime Minister of Japan, was held on 30 September. For the first time in 30 years, a female candidate announced her candidacy. Her name is Ms. Sanae Takaichi. She is a wonderful politician who is well versed in the wide range of policies quick-witted, and has a strong sense of duty and humanity. I have been a supporter of hers for many years because I believe that she is an ideal candidate. I do not support her just because she is a woman, but because she is an excellent politician who happens to be a woman. However, when she announced her candidacy for the LDP presidency, an interesting newspaper article appeared alleging that she is unpopular among her female colleagues because she does not participate in any of the female-only Diet member meetings or groups. Therefore, a politician who does not focus on policies specific to women is not suitable to be the first female prime minister. Does anyone else think this is strange? The same people who condemned discrimination against women are now discriminating against women who do not fit their categories, saying, "It is strange that you do not behave certain way even though you are a woman. Therefore, I won't support you." This is an election to decide the leader of the nation. Of course, not all other female politicians engaged in such discrimination. There were many female Diet members, including myself, who object to it. Still, many Japanese women who are not in policies but engaged in activities that promote gender equality criticize Ms. Sanae Takaichi much like her female colleagues in the Diet did. These women even criticize Ms. Takaichi for not having children, arguing that a woman whose priority her career cannot relate to a housewife. Women who have not had children cannot craft policies about raising kids. I do not want someone who has been working like a man to pose as the representative of women, or even she incapable of crafting policy from a woman's perspective. I cannot bear to listen to this form of abusing commentary. How is it that Ms. Takaichi, who is a woman herself, is incapable of understanding a women's perspective? This idea in itself is confined by this concept of categorization. There are many different ways of life for women. Those who stay single, those who get married, those who have children, those who do not, those who dedicate their lives to work, those who live for their families. All of these lifestyles apply to women. For example, I am a single woman who has no intention of ever getting married, but that does not mean that I intend to be a Diet member who represents people who live the same way that I do. It is my job to think about policies that benefit the lives of all women and all people for that matter. Whether they be young or old, male or female, I take pride in that. Yet, has said it is that women themselves who have always hated discrimination have a stereotypical view that defines women and criticizes women who live differently from themselves, alleging that they do not have a women perspective. This is why I am very uncomfortable being asked to share my opinions as a female parliamentarian. We should stop imposing categories that an attribute defines as being placed into and respect the diversity of individuals. There is no such thing as an absolute representation of women. This problem of seeking diversity but being constrained by attributes is not only a problem for women. but also pitiful in any circumstance related to diversity. For example, the issue of race and minorities are similar. There are people who say to me, "You are part foreigner, so you must have foreigner-friendly policies, right? So these are the actions you should take." For God's sake, such notions are ridiculous. I am a member of the Japanese diet. Unfortunately, it often the people who call for varying diversity who are also the very same people who impose the stereotypes associated with attributes that we very same people that we are born with without our choosing, rather than categorization of attributes which we have choosing, such as one profession. It is often the people who shout about diversity who are also the ones who brand others with labels associated with the attributes that they did not choose for themselves. This is a very strange behavior, and its proposals do not do all half think the same way, or are half forbidden for thinking the same way as the majority of Japanese who happen to be pure-blooded. Just because you belong to a minority does not necessarily mean you have to adapt the way thinking that is stereotypical of minorities. And yet, the ones who criticize discrimination are also the ones that demand that we look, stand, and speak in a way they wish minorities to do so. Then these same peoples condemn those who do not conform to their will. These people often ridicule women who are not feminists as ordinary men, accuse blacks who oppose the BLM movement of not being part of the Black community, and label me, a half Japanese, as deliberately acting Japanese to compensate so that I may look more Japanese. They do not respect my opinion as individuals. They do not tolerate people who do not conform to the desired image of minorities. I have seen many of these people in my life. From my point of view, the people who threw stones at me saying, "Dirty foreigner, go back to America," look equally as ugly as those who gently say, "The opinion of minority are important. You should voice your opinion as minority." After all, both sides are ignoring the diversity of individuals and trying to confine them to their attributes. There is another point that often ponder, that is society treatment of minority as those who are perceived to be at the disadvantage of even weak. I am half Japanese and refer to myself as a half because that is the term that I have always used. One day, I was having a conversation with some people that I had just met when a European woman said to me with a very troubled expression on her face, "Don't call yourself half. You're not half. You have American and Japanese blood in you, so you are double." Of course, I know she meant well, but still it made me feel very uncomfortable. Is being referred to as a half a tragedy of something inferior? Strictly speaking, the term just refers to the fact that half of my racial roots are Japanese while the other half are not. That women comment made me suddenly feel like I was being transformed into a victim to be pitied for my position in life, all because I recognize the fact of my identity. I feel that merely calling out these attributes or making excessive consideration for those with certain attributes and acts that transform ordinary people who do not believe that he or she have a problem into victims. I feel the same form of discomfort with the idea of cultural appropriation, which is a common topic these days. Nowadays, academic circles often use the term in a negative sense, asserting that culture which is in a dominant position in taking some from a minority culture without in consent. Ariana Grande once said that she loved the Japanese language and got a tattoo of her CD album 7 Links in Japanese with the kanji for 7 wheels. Unfortunately, this kanji combination translates to charcoal brazier in Japanese. Ariana posted a picture of her tattoo online, to which Japanese fans commented in just saying, "We are happy that you use Japanese, but your tattoo does not carry the meaning that you think it does, unless that is you meant to your tattoo to essentially did open." Comments such as these were made in pure jest. On the other hand, comments from non-Japanese people accused her of cultural theft. As a result, Ariana stopped studying Japanese, which we were very happy that she claimed to have loved. Japanese people were saddened by this development. We do not feel dominated by a people from another country of race. We do not feel inferior. We do not lend and raise about cultural appropriation. When people get tattooed because they like the Japanese language, or when white celebrities dress up in Japanese kimonos, or when they use design that pay homage to traditional traditional costumes, provided that our culture is not used in a malicious or demeaning way. We would rather say, "Wow, she's wearing kimono," or I'm glad you are interested in Japanese culture." I think we respect each other on the equal footing, but I do not approve of those who are outside of Japan and treat Japanese culture as if it is victim of some sort that needs to be coddled as if it has been subjected to cultural theft. The important thing is to recognize each other as equals, isn't it? No matter whether you are half or pure-blooded or race are equal, and all culture are equal. There's no need to scrutinize words or to make excessive considerations. There's no need to try to protect one people from another or exalt over the others. This excessive form of consideration when looking at the bigger picture can lead to division. Let's stop categorizing people as minority or non-minorities, and as either strong or weak. Even when we don't categorize each other, these positions may change in an instant. For example, do you think that women should be treated as minorities in the workspace? In some workspace that are predominantly women, such as childcare or nursing, it can be difficult for men to work. For example, non-Japanese people are the minority in Japan, but in some schools, workspace and communities, they are the majority. In other words, it is dangerous to designate any one category of people as the only one needing to be protected or respected. In the end, the most important thing is to respect the individual and create a good environment for people from all walks of life. To summarize, do not lump people into groups based on the natural attributes such as male or female. Do not label people as either strong or weak. Diversity should not be about creating specific categorizations. And assigning quotas achieve balance. Unfairly excluding individual positions and ideas because they are different is not equality. I believe in respecting the individuality and ideas of all people, even if that means 100 different people having 100 different ways of thinking. This is the basic premise that is needed to achieve true diversity. Professor Weinstein apologies that my opinion today may not have met the expectations of your offer, as those expectations may have been drawn slowly based on my attributes. Once again, these are just my personal views. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on diversity. Thank you very much.